Hello everybody, welcome to my next tutorial. In this one I'm going to show you guys how I personally paint blood. So we'll go through some demonstrations on how to paint scratches, blood drops, streaming, you know, blood coming from your nose, blood splatter, and we'll also go through how to do some bruising as well as sweat. So let's go through that right now. I'll start off with showing you how to do a simple blood drop. Let me just take my filter off here. I went ahead and created a group. I'm going to add 2 layers to it. So let's go ahead and do that. Bottom layer is going to be multiply. Top layer is going to be screen. And just make sure that your brush mode is also matching whatever layer you're on when it comes to painting blood. In this case, we're going to stick to multiply. So let's start off with doing a quick blood drop and how to do that. So I'm going to be using my chalk brush, pick our red. Mind you, I am currently using Coloris as my color picking tool. It's an extension that you can get for Adobe Photoshop. It's about, I think, $10. So it is a paid extension, but in my opinion, much superior than the default one you get with Photoshop. So if you're someone who's specific like me and want to see what kind of red I'm starting off with, feel free to get Coloris. You can see it here and follow along. All right, let's do some blood. So the great thing about multiply, and if you've seen my other tutorials, you know how it works, but if you haven't, a multiply essentially will make spots of color darker the more you paint over it. So you'll see a demonstration here as I start painting in that blood drop. Cool. All right, bit of a deeper red there. Now, the reason why you get those deep reds is that the way it basically works is when a light source is hitting a droplet of blood or a stream of blood, whatever it might be, where the light is hitting it, essentially that's going to be the darkest point. So if it's coming from the left, this is going to be the darkest point. And then it goes through. The light source will go through it, and then this side's going to be a little bit lighter. So this side I'm going to just keep as a darker red, and that's the great thing about multiply. It replicates the real life look of blood. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add those spots of highlights. So we're going to pop over to the screen layer. We're going to change our brush mode to screen. And I'm going to get an off-white. I'm going to paint that highlight in. Okay. Let's get a lighter red here. There you go. That's a blood drop. As simple as that. Oh, you know what? I apologize. I'm still on screen. Let's go ahead and darken this up just a tad here. There we go. Now, part of the reason why I personally like using the chalk brush is the thing about using or just painting blood in general, and what people don't notice, unless you're really close up to someone who is actually bleeding, is that the blood drop kind of bleeds into the skin a little bit. So you want to make sure it's not too refined. And instead you have these like little edges that are a little bit lighter than others because blood, it tends to kind of bleed out a little bit. And you'll see that demonstration with, even with streaming down your nose, you'll notice that a lot where there is a stream, but there's a little bit of an outer layer of a lighter red that's sort of bleeding into your skin. So there's your blood drop. Why don't we go ahead and we'll use this cut right here, this scar that I painted as the cut. So we'll just use it as a template. I'm going to flip my screen really quick. And I'll do 2 more layers again. Actually, we'll just use the same layer. Go back to your red, go back to multiply, make sure your brush is on multiply too. Let's start painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to block it in. lock it in. Okay. And then I'm going to get a smaller size brush, and I'm just going to get that deep red in the middle. You want to make sure that happens because this is where the deepest recess is. That's really going to sell the cut. And at this point, we can start adding our highlights. Actually, before we do that, one thing you want to do is you want to get the cloud brush and you want to essentially add the bruising. So I'll get a lighter red, and then we're going to add that bruising in. Now, the thing about what I see about a lot of scars and cuts on Second Life, layers that folks wear, is that you'll get this here, but what you're missing is the bruising that happens on the outside of a cut. And so this is where the cloud brush is going to come in, is just adding that inflammation there. And that looks way better once you start adding that in. A little bit more here. Perfect. Now we can start adding our highlight. So let's go back to our screen. Let's change our brush mode to screen. And then let's start adding those little dots of highlights in there. Perfect. And this is going to be the highest point of the cut, and that's what's going to catch the reflection from light sources. You're going to want to do the same up top here too. And this is what's going to sell it to look more realistic. Cool. All right. Now from a distance you can't really see the whites, but that's the thing about your eye. You are going to notice it from a distance. It just all kind of comes together. And so from here, why don't we go ahead and do blood dripping out of it. So I'm going to change. Go back to the multiply. And start. Well, let's do it right here. Go back to your red. Brush that puppy in. Perfect. Keep building it up. Okay. Get the little droplet at the end. All right, looks good. Not too bad. I'll go ahead and add our highlights to this. Go ahead and start adding the spot highlights in there. Looks really good. All right, let's get the cloud brush again. Go back to multiply. And then get that little bleed out effect. Oops, sorry. Not on my red. There you go. All right. She's a little bit too dark, so get a little bit right there. much better. All right, there's your cut. There is blood streaming out of it, trickling out rather. Looks pretty good. I like it so far. Let's do some blood splatter effects. So I'm going to create 2 more layers. Same thing. Multiply, screen. And screen. Now the thing about blood splatter is it's incredibly easy, and this is one of those few times where a brush will do the work for you. So I do have a brush, and it's going to be in Dan Lovisi's pack, which is again predominantly what I use for my brushes. I have a few others, but Dan Lovisi's pack is generally what I use. You can get it free. It's on DeviantArt, or you can just Google it. You can find it. So here is going to be some blood splatter effects. So let's let the brush do the work for you. Get a bigger size. Maybe a little more right here. Okay, not too bad. And the thing about blood splatter is that you want to make sure there's a little bit of chaos. So what I'll do is I will firstly let's get the chalk brush and let's build up some of these here. Just a few random spots of blood. All right, that's actually looking really good. And then what I'll do is I'll get my smudge tool, and I have a speckle brush that I use for it, but you can really use anything. That's a speckle brush inside of his pack. You can use a pour brush too. Let's start pushing some of this out so that way you get less perfect circles, and it kind of recreates that velocity of it hitting your face. So I want to make it a little bit less clean. All right, perfect. I love it. Looks good. Maybe a little add some highlights in these little areas of blood that's a little more clumped up than the others. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to my screen. Just add a few highlights here. Oh, sorry, I'm not on my brush tool. Let me go back to the screen here. Okay. Just add some few spots of red. Cool. That actually looks really good. All right, that's your blood splatter effects. Now on to bruising. I'm going to flip the canvas one more time. Now with bruising, I generally will use a cloud brush to sort of build up that shape. And the way to sell a bruise is a few things. One going to be the textures you use, but also the colors. And so a lot of times when I'm doing bruising, what I'll do is I will have a few references in which I'll color pick from it and basically build up that bruise from there. So I'm going to create 2 layers here. Just the bottom's going to be multiplied, the top one's just going to be normal. And so I don't have a reference right now, so I'm kind of building off experience. So we'll see how it goes, but probably about like a darker pink. My cloud brush run going to be on multiply. Let's just build it up. There's going to be some darker spots on there. Keep building it up. Okay. And then I probably will add some green to it. So why don't we go over here, start adding some of that green. It's very subtle, but this is actually what sells a bruise. And from a distance, your eye's going to notice that green in there, even though it's not totally obvious when you try hard to see it. Maybe some pink too would be good. So a little pink in there. I'm going to go back to my normal layer. Okay. Now here's where you're really going to sell it. So it just looks like you're using a cloud brush and there's colors. But what I'll generally do is I'll get a pour brush. I'll go back to my multiply layer, and then I'm going to build up that texture. And essentially what bruises do, they kind of make your pores pop out in a variety of different colors. And if you actually are able to look at a bruise while you're watching this tutorial, you'll see what I mean. But adding some textures will really make this pop. There you go. Now from a distance, I'm actually really liking how this is looking. Probably would add a little bit more white there, so I'll get a fur brush. Go back to my pore brush and get a little more different pores in there. There you go. Always change the opacity too if you feel like it's sticking out too much. Maybe something like that. Cool. I actually think it looks really good. So there you go. That's how you do some bruising. Last but not least, we'll do some sweat. So I'm going to create a new layer here. And sweat's really easy. I get a cloud brush, and you're really just selling the effect. You don't have to get too crazy with it, but with sweat, the rule of thumb is that if you're painting on a lighter surface, it's going to be a darker color. If you're painting on a darker surface, it's going to be a lighter color. So you're going to flip it. So lighter surface dark, darker surface light. So let's get a skin tone here, and we're going to do the light first. So why don't we pick a few random spots. Okay. Now we're working on the lighter surface. Let's go darker color. This is really great if you're doing like photos when you're in the rain. This will also work. I think I've done it for um, my Fight Me photo. But that's essentially how you do sweat. The cloud brush is really great too for you doing scars, and so you can kind of see some that I did here, but um, a lot of this stuff you can kind of transition to other liquids or even just doing scars and adding more texture to your face that will make your look just a little bit more interesting if you're feeling like you can't find layers in SL that really match the look you're going for. So I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for listening in. Just a short recap. Make sure you're doing, you can do a group, just name it for easier navigation. Create 2 layers. First layer is going to be multiply. Second layer is going to be screen. Make sure your brush modes are matching that. And here's a scar. Make sure you get that deep red inside the middle. Here's a little Bit of blood dribbling down a little bit. It's got the highlights. Here's a blood drop. Here's a blood splatter effect. Pretty awesome. I like how it's looking so far. And here's your bruising. Some sweat. Looks like I got beat up and he's tired. So there you go. All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me. Feel free to leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer if I'm able to. If you guys have any suggestions for tutorials, let me know, and I'm happy to show you whatever and share whatever little knowledge that I have. Thanks for joining. I'll see you guys for the next one.